Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
The losing skid continues. The Sixers fall to the Houston Rockets. They go 0 for 4 on the road trip, and things definitely got ugly when they left the Wells Fargo Center after Christmas Day. Now, I'll say this. I don't think they played atrocious in this game. They didn't lack effort. They worked hard. But I also didn't think they played great either. It's easier to go with this narrative. The Rockets won this game. I don't think the Sixers lost it. The Rockets won it. And with James Harden dropping 44 points and doing what he does best, it's really hard. This guy does this every single game. This guy averages, 39 points or so? So there's a reason why this guy is so effective. He's so damn good, and he is so hard to stop. So this is what top talent looks like. We don't really get to see James Harden play too much because obviously we're in the Eastern Conference and you don't play these squads too many times throughout an 82-game schedule. So we don't get to see this, but this is what elite is. This is what the top tier talent looks like. They dominate games, they win games, and James Harden absolutely did that. Now you could look at Clint Capela and say, well, Broads, don't forget about his 30. The reason why he had 30 is because of how lethal James Harden is. If I will criticize the Sixers in this one, I thought they did a poor job allowing dribble penetration, which allowed James Harden to go up and throw that alley-oop once he strategically pulled the big man out from underneath the basket and pulled him away from Clint Capela. He could just lob it up, and from there, it's money in the bank consistently. James Harden absolutely had his fingerprints all over this basketball game, and sometimes you just need to tip your cap and say, well, that's what elite players do in this league. There's plenty more to talk about when it comes to this game, but first, we need to hear a word from my sponsor, SeatGeek. Do you want to go to a game? Do you want money for tickets? Well, I can give you some money towards the tickets. If you use the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page, you get $20 off of your total purchase. You could put that towards parking, towards beer, towards food. It's a no-brainer to use the promo code BROADS today. Now, I think this loss feels a lot worse just based off the fact that this team lost 3 games prior. If the Sixers won 3 of 5, even, I mean, that's not even that good, but I'm just saying, if the Sixers won 3 of 5, or 4 of 5, or 4 of 6, and then they lost this game, you would walk away with it and say, okay, it is what it is. You're on the road against Houston. One of the best players in the league dominates the game, and you move on to the next one. It just feels way worse because you see the offense struggle at times. You see they only scored 6 3-pointers while the Houston Rockets knocked down 12. This Rockets team pops threes left and right. It's unbelievable. It's sickening. It really is sickening how much they shoot the 3. But they doubled the amount of 3-pointers hit. And that's a big problem. That's my biggest takeaway from this game. Besides James Harden being the athlete that he is, it comes down to the dribble penetration that was allowed and knocking down the 3-pointers, the lack thereof when it comes to the Sixers. Ben Simmons. Let's talk about Ben Simmons. Because he had a great game, a triple-double. And, oh, by the way, James Harden had a triple-double with those 44 points. So he was truly special, magnificent. But let's go to Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, triple-double. He had 29 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. But defensively, he was unreal as well. He ended up logging 3 steals and 4 blocks on top of his offensive performance. You saw some things when it came to Josh Richardson and Ben Simmons with the 2-man game that I would love Brett Brown to continue throwing in there because it was definitely positive. You saw Ben Simmons get into spots where he can be really effective and where he can put the basket in the hoop, which is definitely closer to the basket. But all around, you saw a nice 2-man game with Ben and Josh Richardson. But Ben's game was awesome. Here's my problem with Ben Simmons, though. I'm not taking away what I saw. I think defensively, I mentioned how James Harden is elite in this league. Ben Simmons defensively is elite to me. He did a great job stopping James Harden when he could. Now, great offense beats great defense in this league. Elite scoring beats elite defense. That's just reality. So there's only so much you can do to someone like James Harden. But all around, I thought Ben Simmons was insane on the defensive side of the floor. But when he gets called out, he normally answers the bell when things get heavy, when things get brutal, when the media gets harsh, when his teammates get harsh. He answers. Now, it's not every single night because he hears criticism every single night, but once it gradually snowballs into an insane level of criticism, he responds. We saw it last year against the Nets in the playoffs. We saw it the year previous. Whenever it gets so brutal to Ben Simmons, he finds a way to answer. Now, Joel Embiid came out and mentioned how he needs Ben Simmons to shoot, essentially. He came out and ripped apart his teammate and said, I need this guy to shoot the basketball. That's essentially what came out of Joel Embiid's mouth. And then you heard Josh Richardson speak about accountability, and I threw that in there as Brett Brown, and I think there is something to be said about that being towards Brett Brown, but it also comes down to Ben Simmons, and Ben Simmons being accountable for what Ben Simmons can be. So he answered the bell. I'll compare it to this, though. He knocked down a three-pointer, then what happened? We didn't see another three-pointer for another 15 to 20 games. Then he knocks down a three-pointer. I don't want this to be that same situation. He answers the criticism. Okay, I love it. He was great in this basketball game. He was unreal. Watching him every single dribble. Watching him defensively every single possession. I was mesmerized by it. But don't go quiet for 15, 20 games until Joel Embiid calls you out again. Do this consistently. Do this majority of the time because you are capable of doing it. I don't think that that's too much. I'm not taking away from what Ben Simmons did in this particular basketball game against the Houston Rockets. It was special. Do it more. Why does it take a teammate, the media, the fan base? Why does it take those specific people or group of people to get you to play at the top of your game? That's what eats me alive. And I don't think that's unfair. He had 6 offensive boards, by the way, and 20 field goal attempts. There's no denying he was way more aggressive in this game. And keep in mind, it was a triple-double. He had double-digit assists. He was creating for his teammates. Let's go to Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid got worked, got hosed when it came to running up and down the floor. You could just see Clint Capela going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Embiid had no shot in hell of keeping up with that pace. He's out of shape. He can't do it. That's not his game. He doesn't want to run up and down the floor. It was eating him all game long. You could see he was tired out. He was clearly fatigued. That's a problem. I didn't like Joel Embiid's game. Don't give me how many points he dropped. I watched it. I saw it with my eyeballs. I didn't love it. Not good enough. Not at all. Al Horford continues to struggle. Josh Richardson made some assists. He had 8 assists, and as I mentioned with the two-man game with Ben Simmons, I thought they had very strong moments, but he struggled offensively when it came to scoring, and I stated earlier in this season I needed 25 games to really see what this team is because that's a big enough sample size. Well, I'm not delusional. This team has a problem when it comes to offense. I don't like the offense. They can't find any rhythm. It doesn't seem to be structured, and that absolutely goes on Brett Brown. But I don't like what I see out of this offense. They are unwilling to shoot it at times, and I'm not just talking about Ben Simmons. I'm talking about everyone. They won't shoot it. They'll kick it around. They'll move it around. They'll dribble and then pick up their dribble and kick it back out. There's just no structure involved, and you can see there's a ton of players that are confused, lost, and can't find any ways to get going. And I know a lot of people are talking about how cooked Al Horford is. And for someone who has been defending Brett Brown over the last few years, I don't think Al Horford is cooked. I just don't think he's being utilized correctly. Now, this is not an easy task. Not any head coach can come in here and work with a point guard that doesn't shoot, Joel Embiid, Al Horford, who is a center/4 guy, Tobias Harris, like, it's not an easy fit. It is a very odd roster. It's totally different from every other roster. So it's not as if this is an easy thing to figure out. And Brett's just so horrendous he can't figure this out. This is a tough task. But I don't think offensively Brett is putting the players in the best position or creating the best spots on the floor for these players. That's just how I feel at this moment. The bench. The bench is awful. No James Ennis in this one, so already depleted. No Matisse Thybulle, and Mike Scott is actually useless. Useless. Tobias Harris went on a slump. He got out of his slump. He had 24 in this one. He didn't shoot a great percentage, but he had 24 in this one. When it comes to Mike Scott, this is no longer a slump. This is almost what he is. Airballing threes, not even close. He can't bring anything on the other side of the floor. Like, he is flat out hurting this basketball team. You know how much I hate Furkan Korkmaz. I am at the point where I think Furkan Korkmaz at least shows enough to take over Mike Scott's role. Now, the difference is the role Mike Scott plays is at a different position, but you know what I'm trying to say. Mike Scott should lose a ton of minutes. It's hard to do that based off the fact of the position that he plays. But hell, Kyle O'Quinn should get thrown in the mix over him. Mike Scott flat out is hurting this basketball team, and it is a huge issue. This is not a slump. This is what he is. This is what he is at this point. It's too much of a sample size. And I talk about how Al Horford's not being utilized the right way, so I think that's why his numbers are hurting and that's why he's lost. Mike Scott's getting wide open looks from three. Mike Scott's shooting the three ball. That's what Mike Scott does, and these shots are open, and he's missing the rim completely. Two totally different scenarios. I'll tell you where this game was lost. The second quarter. The Sixers did a great job defensively in the first quarter. They only allowed the Rockets to score 20 points. In the second quarter, 40. 40 points! That's unbelievable. What a huge swing. Now, the run started when Brett went to a different lineup. He threw Neto in there, and Neto played for 4 minutes and got thrown right back on the bench instantly. That lineup was bad, and it was really a reason why this team lost the game. That started the run, I would say. The second quarter cannot happen. It seems like a common theme, though, over the last few games. There's one quarter that sticks out. There's one quarter where the Sixers lay off a little bit defensively when it comes to the intensity. This was a fast-paced game. There's a reason why the Rockets play the way that they do. They play up and down the court. They score a ton of points. This is a good team on the other side. But they controlled the pace of the game. They played the way that they wanted to play. Now, that benefits someone like Ben Simmons, absolutely, but it hurts players like Al Horford, Joel Embiid, and some of these slower guys. And the Houston Rockets controlled the pace of this game. The bench did not help. I thought Trey Burke provided a nice little spark for his 16 minutes. He had 11 points. Corky Doodles, he had 8 points, 20 minutes. He had that one shot where he shot it over the backboard, and it was a very odd shot. He looked confused and dazed as if, did I really do that? There's no way he meant to do that. There's no way he knew he could do that. I did think, though, at times he looked overwhelmed by some of the defenders on the Houston Rockets. He had that wide-eyed look. Like, whoa. Picked up his dribble, kicked it out. Like, he looked a little overwhelmed by maybe the physicality of some of these guys, the length of some of these guys, the speed of some of these players. At one point, Russell Westbrook had him one-on-one and ended up taking a mid-range jumper. What are you doing, dude? You're not going to attack Furkan Korkmaz? That's the NBA these days, though. Jumper. Although Russell Westbrook had a really good job driving the lane. That's where he scored all of his points. In that second half, he ended up missing a dunk and then missing a layup on consecutive plays there, which allowed the Sixers to creep into the lead and make a little bit of a run, make a little bit of some noise, but eventually the Rockets did their thing. Now, I have to credit Russell Not Russell Westbrook, I'm sorry. And I love just calling him that because it's hilarious. I think he is an overrated player, just a stat sheet kind of guy. But I want to talk about James Harden. Some of the shots he made, he was smothered. Smothered. It's just what he does. Isolation, dribble, gets low, right? He's dribbling in between his legs, and then he does his step back three. At points, he was actually smothered, and it was great defense. There's only so much you can do. There's a reason why James Harden scores the way that he does against majority of the teams in this league. He's just that damn good. He's just that damn special. Just because I say that, it doesn't mean there are some negatives with the Sixers, right? I said it like this. They didn't play awful. Their effort was there, but they didn't play great either. There should be some positives and some negatives to take away when it comes to the Sixers in this one. The positive is Ben Simmons. I just think he needs to do this more consistently, and there's no reason as a professional athlete with that type of skill set, it should take your teammates calling you out, or it should take the media calling you out, or the fan base calling you out. Do this more consistently. The word is consistently. I think the two-man game between Josh Richardson and Ben Simmons, there's something there. There's definitely something there. I think Trey Burke is making a little run for himself off the bench, and we need bench help. Don't tell me Matisse Thybulle is that important that we fall apart to this degree once he leaves. It shouldn't be. That's the thing. It shouldn't be. It scares me that it is, though. But he's clearly an energy boost, and he's someone the Sixers really need coming off of that bench. But negatively, the offensive woes are still a problem. I think at times, defensively, they just give up. To allow 40 points is unacceptable in one quarter, especially after you just held them to half of that in the first quarter. You take away that second quarter, it's a totally different ballgame. They have OKC and the Boston Celtics at home. They need to go home and just win. That's what it is. They need to go home and win a game. They got to get that feeling back. I'll worry about the next away game, the next road trip when that happens. But as for right now, it's behind us for the time being. It's put on hold. The road games, they're put on hold. That thought process, that mind process about not being able to win on the road is on hold. It's on pause. Go home, get revenge against OKC, and we all know about the Boston Celtics. I don't really have to explain how big of a game that is, how important that is. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. But there's no other choice other than finding a way to get out of this. Winning basketball games. It seems like there's no chemistry. I'm not saying the locker room is turning on anyone or anything like that, as if it's an Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar type of situation, but I think you can see that there's some frustration inside that locker room, and players are a little bit disappointed on what's going on right now and mad, and there's a ton of emotions, and that's because they're athletes, they're competitors, and they're pissed off because they want to win basketball games. I understand that, but you got to find a way to turn the page and win basketball games and figure this thing out. We are now in January. In terms of where we are in the NBA season, yeah, we're closing in on getting to the middle. This team should be flowing by now. They're not, and they need to soon. Real soon. They have to. They're too good to lose 4 straight games in a row, no matter if it's on the road or not. No matter who they're playing. They should never lose 4 straight games. And that's what's killing me. That's what's killing me. We'll see how they respond to this. They are lucky, and I mentioned this before, they are lucky the Eagles are in the playoffs. Because once that's over, it's going to be a rude awakening. It's going to be brutal. If they think it's bad now, they have no idea what's coming. Now, I think Brett does, and I think Ben and Joel do, because they've been here before. It'll be nuts. It's already kind of nuts. I think it'll be 3 million times worse, though, if this type of play continues. When I talked about Joel Embiid's stat line and I talked about the eye test, game by game, you can be satisfied with the win or loss, or satisfied with the win and disappointed with the loss, and I get all that. But when it comes to the eye test with this team as a whole, there's something off. And I know a lot of people are going with the Elton Brand thing, and I know a lot of people are going with the Brett Brown thing, and maybe even combining the two. As I stated, I don't know if Al Horford is cooked. I just think the offense isn't really built to utilize his strengths. Now, defensively, when he went minus 51 in 2 straight games combined, and he's getting waxed and torched defensively, yeah, that has nothing to do with how he's utilized on the offensive side. But just as we've seen with this team throughout this season, when offense looks good, their defense seems to get picked up. When the offense struggles, their defense at times seems to struggle. So it's just a correlation with how the team is playing and how individuals play as well. It's a confidence thing. When Al Horford's struggling on the offensive side, his defensive game seems to lack as well. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing with my eyes. We'll see how they manage to get over this hump. And it starts with the Oklahoma City Thunder coming to the Wells Fargo Center. They need just a deep breath, and the only way they get that deep breath is to win a game at home. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you next time.